Apparently, we're number one, at least according to Christian apologist Dave Earley. Of course, I don't really think that's what he meant, but when you leave your low-hanging fruit just sitting out there, you can't blame anyone for just reaching out for an easy prize. So, is atheism number one? Let's see what Dave has to say. So today we're going to go look at a video by Dave Earley over at Dave Earley Ministries, because he has a 3-part series on atheism. He's going after us, clearly without having the slightest clue what the hell he's talking about, and let's be honest, he's not fooling anyone. Therefore, I'm going to return the favor and explain just how ignorant and simple-minded this guy really is. And it's no wonder why his upvote to downvote ratio is so ridiculously low. Absolutely nobody is buying the bullshit that he's slinging. So, let's go take a look.
Do you realize in the Western world that several years ago, 1 out of 10 Americans identified themselves as either an atheist, an agnostic, or a spiritual nothing?
Well, that was a step in the right direction. And since anyone who doesn't actively believe in any gods is, by definition, an atheist, even if they don't use that particular word to refer to themselves, that 10% of the population is on our side, assuming those numbers are actually correct and I haven't gone to verify it. And guess what? Now it's even more. How wonderful is that?
Recently, that number had increased to 1 out of 4.
It's higher than that today, depending on where you look. In parts of Europe, for example, the number of people who do not believe in gods, and those people are all atheists, but the number of people who don't believe in gods, those outnumber the people who do. I'm pretty sure that the numbers are actually higher than reported in the US because Christianity in particular has an unwarranted social power that is likely to make people misreport their actual position to maintain their social standing. The fact is, religion is dying in the West, and that is a very, very good thing.
Atheism is a fast-growing belief system in our country.
No, it's not. Atheism isn't a belief system. It is the answer to a single question and nothing more. Do you believe in any gods? If the answer is no, then you are an atheist, and that's true whether you want to use that label or not. If the answer is yes, then you are a theist. It tells you absolutely nothing whatsoever about what either side thinks beyond that very specific question. Now, I doubt that this guy understands any of that, or maybe anything else, I really don't know, and I'm sure he just doesn't care. But that's the reality, take it or leave it. We just don't have God beliefs. That's it. And we're winning.
What is atheism? Well, that's what we're going to talk about the next few days.
And invariably get it all wrong. Okay, I know I'm butting in here a lot up front, so I'll try to control myself, but these people really have no clue what they're talking about, and I think it's important to point that out. The more that you let them run on at the mouth, the more ridiculous they get, but the harder it is to push them back to the beginning and say, hey, hold on, you fucked up way back there. Again, as I've said before, they really aren't making these videos for us. They don't care about us. They're making them to trot out imaginary boogeymen to scare their congregations and try to extort some more money and power from their parishioners. This is how religion works, folks. It's why, at the moment at least, this video has 3 upvotes and 170 downvotes, because Dave Earley is full of shit. And let's not let him forget it.
The dictionary defines it as no belief in the existence of God or gods?
Well, not quite, but I'll give him credit for not trotting out the old tired straw man that we have a positive belief that no gods exist. So I guess that's something. The fact, though, for the overwhelming majority of atheists is that we simply haven't been convinced to take the claims made by the religious seriously because they can present absolutely no objective evidence whatsoever that the things in their heads are actually true in factual reality. And that's important. It's important to us, at least. The religious don't tend to care. We don't care what you say. We care what you can prove. And the fact that you can't prove anything, that's not a positive for your side. The fact is, we're not saying there are no gods. We're saying we don't believe you. And that's all atheism is. If you want to change us, you have to do better. Anybody think they will? Yeah, neither do I.
No belief in the existence of God or gods. And it's becoming very popular. For example, one of our more popular actors, George Clooney, said, "I don't believe in heaven or hell, and I don't believe in God. All I know is that I won't allow this life to be wasted."
And that's a good sentiment. This is the only life that we can actually prove that we have. If you're going to ignore this life in the hopes that you might have another one coming up after you die, then you are an idiot. And it's funny watching these people because they seem so absolutely incredulous that we don't believe in their imaginary friends. It's like, what? You don't believe in Harry Potter? How is that even possible? Because these people have some serious psychological problems. They have adopted a belief system so completely uncritically that any idea, no matter how poorly supported, it just has to be true because they've based their entire self-concept on believing in this ridiculous garbage. And how stupid is that? Yeah, you get it, don't you?
His buddy Brad Pitt, also a famous actor, said, "I'm probably 20% atheist, 80% agnostic. I don't think anybody really knows. You'll either find out or not when you get there. Until then, there's no point thinking about it." Well, I disagree. I disagree with all those statements.
Well, of course you do, because you have a vested interest in fleecing the sheep. It's how you keep a roof over your head and food in your belly. People don't tend to badmouth their employers unless they're looking for a new job, and I've seen people defending some of the most heinous practices just because they've been brainwashed that they've got to be doing the right thing. But the fact is, it doesn't matter if you disagree with anything. It matters what evidence you can offer for your side. And unfortunately, none of the religious can actually provide a thing, not a shred of objectively verifiable evidence for anything that they have faith in. And faith is intellectually empty. Anybody can have faith in anything. You can believe in Bigfoot based on faith, and that's fucking stupid. If you had proof, you wouldn't need faith, would you? Think about it. It can't be that hard.
You can know that there is a God, and you better think about it now because it will make a big difference in your daily life as well as your eternal existence.
Well, that's your claim. Now prove it. But that's where the religious tend to get into trouble, isn't it? They've been brainwashed into thinking that all of this stuff just has to be true. They haven't been convinced intellectually by evidence. They've been conned emotionally by their feelings. They can't consider any other options, and therefore, they're convinced that everyone else just has to take the same kind of unsupported nonsense seriously as they do. Yet, we don't. And that's why it all comes off like childish threats when they try to tell us what supposedly awaits us. You better watch out or else. Or else what? Because we have no reason at all to take anything that you're spouting seriously. You can make all the claims about hell or eternal separation from God or whatever else that you want. So far as we're concerned, that's all bullshit. You have to do a whole lot better than that.
Well, there are several reasons why people become atheists.
And how exactly do you know that? Oh, right, it's all just made up. You have absolutely no evidence to support any of your actual beliefs. I'll let you go on with your invented rationalizations in a minute, but the reality is absolutely nobody ever becomes an atheist for any of the reasons on his board. So I'll let him make a fool of himself, well, more of a fool of himself for a while, and I'll let you all get a laugh, and then I'll explain why he's so ridiculously wrong at the end. So, stand by. Here he goes.
But one reason a lot of younger Americans are choosing to say that they are atheist is this reason. Because if there is no God, I can be my own God. If I can be my own God, I can live however I choose. And if I can live however I choose, you can't judge me because there's no God, there's no standard of judgment.
Yeah, except there is. It's the only standard of judgment that we can prove actually exists. You know, the law, that thing that you are held accountable to whether you like it or not. Humans hold one another accountable for their actions. If you do wrong, you go to jail. You get fined. You get your privileges taken away. Now, prove that God does any of that in any demonstrable way. Prove that God exists in the first place. And good luck with that because you're going to need it. This is just an immature child crying, well, you better do what I want or my imaginary friend is going to get you. Yeah, let's see that. Right here, right now, trot that fucker out. Let's see what he can do. And it's funny how it never works out like that, isn't it?
So I'm going to do what I want to do, and you can't tell me it's wrong. And more young adults in America are buying into this belief. Well, that has cultural results we're seeing in our country. You have confusion. If there's no right and wrong, well then people aren't sure about their identity.
Mostly because your identity, your individual identity, is at least to a certain degree up to you. Now, granted, there are some things that are completely beyond your control, and I'm sure we're going to get to that in a second, but more or less, you get to decide who you are, what you want, and what your own purpose in life is. You don't get these things assigned to you by an invisible man in the sky. Religion is all about control, and today, for better or worse, that control is generally falling by the wayside. And mostly, I think that's a really good thing.
Am I male or am I a female? They're not sure about what marriage is.
No, you're the one that seems to be confused, and that's not really a surprise. Marriage is, and it has always been, a civil covenant between two adults, two consenting adults in the modern world, although in the past, under religion, that wasn't always the case. It has nothing at all to do with your farcical deity. You can walk down all the aisles in all the churches that you want, but you're not actually married until you get that piece of paper from the state. Marriage, no matter what delusions persist in your head, it is a legal contract between two individuals that want to intermix their legal identities in exchange for certain legal privileges. That's it. That's all marriage is, and that's really all marriage has ever been. Welcome to the real world, Dave. Stick around. You might learn something.
Is it a man and a man or a woman and a woman? What is marriage? There's a lot of confusion. What is a family? How should a government function?
What does that actually have to do with anything? Religion has no place in any government, and where religion has been in charge, it has universally been a terrible thing. Because nowhere in the Bible does it spell out the legitimate functions for a modern government. In fact, of all the rules in the Bible, the vast majority only make society demonstrably worse, and we don't need the Bible for the very, very, very few things that might actually be halfway decent ideas. Religion sucks. Your religion sucks. Dave, figure it out.
What's a society really all about? And so you have a lot of confusion going on. When you have that going on, you have crumbling. Right now in America, we have a deconstruction of all the foundational things that make our society a society that has worked.
And guess what? That's nothing new. Every generation has challenged the established norms of the generation before, and that's how we continue to advance. Sure, there's always been hiccups along the way, and yeah, I think some of the things that we're doing right now are mistakes, but that's just how it goes. We've found ancient graffiti going back thousands of years bemoaning how the youth were destroying the world, and yet we're still here, aren't we? We can go all the way back to Aristotle in the 4th century BCE, who said young people are high-minded because they have not yet been humbled by life, nor have they experienced the force of circumstances. They think they know everything and are always quite sure about it. You know, that sounds pretty damn familiar, doesn't it? Maybe you ought to learn some actual history and get your nose out of the fucking Bible.
We have a deconstruction of our individual identity, our genders. People are confused. They don't know if they're a male or a female or what they are.
Now, you notice that this guy seems inordinately concerned over what people's genders are. It kind of makes me wonder if he's got some confusion going on that he's not willing to admit to. You know, when the religious really get going on a particular subject, you tend to find them in the bathroom with a male prostitute. Just saying. I mean, go ask Ted Haggard.
They're confused. and the sense of identity is crumbling. Marriage is crumbling. What is marriage? A man with a man, a woman with a woman, a human with an animal. It's being redefined. The true biblical definition of marriage is crumbling.
Because it's no longer useful, and honestly, it probably never was. Screw the Bible. Screw your religion. We're also not treating women like property, and we're not keeping slaves, two things that also come right out of the Bible. Because the Bible is shit, and so is anyone at all who takes it seriously. Maybe you ought to knock that off, because really, you're just embarrassing yourself.
What's a family? A committed husband and wife raising children.
Says who? Because nothing says that any two people who are legally married have to have children at all. Because there's an awful lot of people out there who don't. And guess what? We don't make it illegal for older men and women who are past the age of having children to get married. And if that's what marriage was about, we wouldn't allow that, would we? Because you're full of shit, and we all know that. Now, we can argue over the actual value of people in the home, but two men or two women, they aren't demonstrably better or worse for children than a man and a woman or anything else. Because let's be honest, there's an awful lot of really terrible marriages out there with really terrible relationships being really bad for children, and I don't think it has anything to do with one man and one woman at all. Welcome to the real world, Dave. Maybe you ought to reconsider your stupid fucking beliefs.
Or now, is it two men and a child or two women and a child? What is a family? That's being redefined. Traditional family is being attacked and it's crumbling. How's a government supposed to work? Who's supposed to have authority and tell me what to do?
Other people, ultimately, because we are a social species and we need other people to survive. You know who doesn't get to tell anyone what to do? Your imaginary friend. Because here's the thing, Dave, it's never God actually issuing orders. It's the high-ups in the churches who seem to think they get to speak for God when they're really only speaking for themselves. It's amazing how much money and power they get when they're pontificating from on high, right? Make sure the priests get your money and the best of the things that you own, because God says so. Yeah, says who? The people getting rich off the proclamation, of course. They're the ones that say so, because there's no fucking proof that God is real. And you notice that people like Dave, they're all doing the same thing, right? I'm sure that whatever flock of idiots he's leading around by the nose, they're filling up his collection plate with all of their excess money, because he's not doing this crap for free. Funny how that works.
And so there's a lot of crumbling, and that results in a lot of conflict. We have protest, we have rebellion, and we have this sense that I can be my own God, and so I'm going to do what I want to do, and if you try to tell me it's wrong, you're wrong, and we're going to have conflict.
There has never been a time in human history where there hasn't been conflict, Dave. It helps if you aren't so absurdly ignorant of, well, pretty much everything. But this is what happens when you stick your nose in the Bible and you never look anywhere else. You become ignorant of history, humanity, science, reality, and everything, really. I'm not sure why this is a surprise to anyone. Everyone seems to have recognized that Dave here is a complete dumbass.
Well, there's also personal results of atheism, and these are very serious. One is emptiness. We understand that God created all of us with a God-shaped void in our lives.
Bullshit. The only people who think that are the people who believe in a God, and you people are crazy. There is no God-shaped hole. That's your imagination. There is no such thing. You are so desperate to believe in this imaginary father figure in the sky of yours that you project that desire onto others. But guess what? We don't have that desire. We don't care about anything until it can actually be proven objectively to exist in the real world. And you people are piss poor at actually proving anything. It's why we spend so much time laughing at you. Because you're a dumbass, Dave. Grow the hell up.
We have a God-shaped hole. And no one but God, nothing but God can fill that hole. Alcohol, drugs, sex, money, power, nothing can fill that hole. But we live in a society that says there is no God. So people are trying to fill that hole with everything but God. And it's not working.
Says you. Because I have absolutely nothing missing in my life. I'm very happy. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't use drugs. I'm very satisfied and I'm very successful. I've been married for almost 29 years now. I have 2 adult children who are both college educated, and they're both doing just fine without your imaginary friend. You're just full of shit, Dave. Knock it off.
We have the highest rate of addiction we've ever had. We have more people dying of drug overdoses than we've ever had. We have the highest rate of suicide, the highest rate of depression.
Yeah, but that's mostly your side, Dave. I mean, divorce is far more pronounced among the religious than it is among atheists. And guess what? The only reason some groups have higher rates of suicide or suicidal tendencies is because of assholes like you, who spend their lives running around telling them that they're evil and that other people should hate them. You're the people saying there's something wrong with gay people, trans people, etc., etc., etc. You are the fucking animal, Dave, not us. Social species. Remember that? Let's get rid of your stupid beliefs and see how much things improve. Because I'm willing to bet it'll be quite a bit.
There's going to be emptiness. If you choose to live without God, you're choosing a life of inner emptiness. Second, you're choosing a life of eternal separation.
Well, that's your claim. Because that's ultimately what all of this comes down to. Delusional people making sweeping claims that they simply cannot back up. Because, fee-fees and fear. The problem here isn't us, Dave. It's you. You and your idiotic ilk. You people are a complete embarrassment to humanity, and one day we're all going to look back and roll our eyes that idiocy like yours ever existed, like we do today with the idea that Thor causes thunder and lightning and Apollo carried the sun across the sky. You're on the losing side, Dave. Stop now before you lose completely.
You see, if you don't want God in this life, you will not have God in the next life.
And that's a completely empty threat. If you don't do what we tell you, invisible, intangible, universe-creating pixies, they're going to torch you for all eternity. Yeah, sure. Prove that. This is why religion is so utterly laughable, because it's all just bald assertions thrown out there for human control based on primitive fears, because far too many people are credulous and incredibly stupid. And that's you, Dave. You need to actually improve, because you're just a fucking embarrassment.
And that's a terrible decision, because God is love. God is light. God is life. God gives joy. God is the God of peace. God is the God of hope. God is the God of truth. Do you want to live your life without any of those things? Do you want to live your eternity without any of those things? Because if you tell God to push off in this life, God will not force you to spend eternity with Him. In fact, you have chosen to spend eternity without Him in darkness.
And good riddance to your imaginary friend. Fuck your stupid God. The God of the Bible is a moral monster, and I want nothing at all to do with anything that defends genocide and slavery and child sacrifice and pedophilia and rape and all the other things that God has pushed throughout the Bible. Fuck you, Dave, and fuck your God. It's that simple.
Hey, there is a God. He's real. There's evidence for God.
Really? And where is that evidence exactly? Not the stupid philosophical wishful thinking that you morons push. I mean actual, demonstrable, objectively verifiable evidence. Where is that exactly? Oh right, you don't have any because you're just a gullible jackass. It's just more vivid imaginations and empty ideas based on the wishful thinking of immature children living in adult bodies. You people have some serious problems. Seek some professional help.
He loves you. He sent His Son to die for you. I encourage you, open your mind, study the truth, and get to know the real and living God.
Sure, trot Him out for us. Let's see Him. Yeah, we know you won't because you can't, because you're completely out of your ever-loving mind. This is why the religious can't figure out why we find them so absolutely ridiculous and completely unconvincing. Because they're terminally deluded and can't see the world except through their God-colored glasses. They've got this magical thinking ingrained in their heads, and the second anyone asks them simple questions that anyone ought to be able to answer, well, they just can't relate. How can they be wrong? Why should they be the ones that have to produce evidence? It's clear that they're the only ones that are right, right? Yeah, about that. That's not how skepticism and critical thinking works, sorry. It's about time you idiots got that through your tiny little heads. Anyway, this guy has 2 more videos on the subject, and I'm going to go after both of those too, coming up in the next couple of weeks. Why? Because when you find somebody as ridiculous as Dave Earley, you milk it. Besides, he's making all of these ridiculous claims with all of the standard errors, and it's interesting to handle them all in one place. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Because this is why these apologists are such a ridiculous joke. They're completely wrong, demonstrably wrong, and they can't even figure out why. Because, as we all know, they just don't care. Because why would they? It gets in the way of that dopamine slow drip in their heads. And that's pathetically sad. But what else is new? It's what religion is all about, after all.
bum.